Hello everyone, my name is Alex, and welcome to the Science of a Shot, Episode 2, How Strong is Your Bowstring? In this episode, we're going to go over the physics behind the strength of your bowstring. As I explained in the last video, the string is one of two parts of the bow that actually seem like they're in motion during the entire shot. Let's take a look at one. This is a bowstring. A modern bowstring is usually made of between 10 to 20 strands of Dyneema or spectra thread. Each strand is approximately 0.45 millimeters thick and actually consists of 1,549 individual fibers. You might be asking, how do I know this? Well, because I have literally no respect for my time nor my sanity. I use tweezers and literally counted out each and every fiber in the strand. From this information, we know that the average bowstring has anywhere from 15,490 to 30,980 fibers inside of it. Now, let's take a look at some of the material properties of one of the most popular string materials, Dyneema. According to Brett Sanborn's study of the tensile properties of Dyneema SK76 single fibers at multiple loading rates using a direct gripping method published in the Journal of Dynamic Behavior Materials, just one fiber of Dyneema has an engineering strain of around 0.008 when put under 1 gigapascal of engineering stress. So what are engineering stress and engineering strain? So let me break it down for you. Before we talk about what engineering stress and strain are, we should first talk about what stress and strain are in general. Stress is equal to the force divided by the cross-sectional area and is measured in pascals. 1 pascal is equal to the force of 1 newton on a cross-sectional area of 1 square meter. Strain is equal to the change in length divided by the original length. Strain does not have any units. A normal stress or strain occurs when the stress is applied perpendicular to the object in question. Now, if we graph stress and strain together on a graph here, we get something called a stress-strain curve. A typical stress-strain curve for a man-made polymer will look something like this example. So, how do we read these stress-strain curves? If we look at this example, you can see that each graph is linear at the very beginning. During this period, a material undergoes proportional elastic deformation, and this means that stress and strain increase proportionally, and all changes are 100% reversible. A great example of elastic deformation would be a rubber band. As shown, after you stretch the rubber band, it'll return to its original position once you stop applying force. The slope of the stress-strain curve during this phase is something called the Young's modulus, which is a number that represents a material's stiffness. You can also see that around here on the graph stops being linear. This is called the proportional limit. Upon reaching this point, the elastic deformation becomes non-proportional, meaning that the Young's modulus no longer applies at this point. Despite not being proportional at the point, the material's deformation continues to be elastic up until the next point. This point is called the upper yield point. However, upon reaching the upper yield point, plastic deformation becomes possible. Plastic deformation is the permanent, non-reversible deformation of a material. One great example of this would be what happens when you bend a paperclip. As you can see, the paperclip initially undergoes elastic deformation and will return back to its original state. But once the force reaches a certain threshold, the upper yield point, it'll start to deform plastically. After reaching this point, as you can see in the graph, the fiber will quickly approach failure and snap. Now that we understand stress, strain, and stress-strain curves, let's take a look at the forces acting upon a bowstring while it's at full draw. Now, let's assume our archer has a draw weight of 40 pounds. Now, if you've taken any form of physics, you know that the first step we need to take is to draw a free body diagram. We know that there's a force of 40 pounds applied by the fingers right here. And since the bowstring is in equilibrium at full draw, there needs to be an equal force of 40 pounds in the other direction. Thus, a force of 20 pounds is exerted at each of the limbs. Therefore, at any point in the string, you should have a stress of 40 pounds. Since stress is equal to force divided by cross-sectional area, we will need to put this into newtons and find the diameter of the bowstring. If we convert 40 pounds into newtons, we'll end up getting 177.9289 newtons. To find the cross-sectional area of the string, we first need to measure the diameter of the bowstring, which for me is 2.45 millimeters. We can then divide this in half to find the radius of the bowstring, and use the formula pi r squared to find the cross-sectional area. For my string, the cross-sectional area is 4.71435 square millimeters. Now we can solve for stress. If we divide the force of 177.9289 newtons by the cross-sectional area of 4.71435 millimeters squared, we'll end up with a stress of 37,741.9595 pascals, or 37.7420 kilopascals. Now, if we look at the stress-strain curve from Brett Sanborn's study, we can determine how much strain the string will suffer from, and how much it stretches over the course of a shot. But wait, if we look at Sanborn's stress-strain curve, it's just for one fiber of Dyneema. If you remember the calculations we did earlier in this video, a bowstring is made of 10 to 12 strands, each of which has 1,549 of these fibers. Now, as we add more fibers working in tandem, the stress and strain, they can endure changes proportionally. This means that for my 20-strand string, the stress needed to cause the strains in this curve is actually 30,980 times greater than the ones displayed on the y-axis. Now, if we take a look at the stress exerted on the string and place it on the graph, the dimensions are so great that we look like we're at the origin. So let's make our lives a little bit easier and find the Young's modulus of the bowstring, when you can use that to figure out where we fall on the strain. The Young's modulus is calculated by simply finding the slope of the curve. So let's take this point here, which details a stress of around 30,980 gigapascals and a strain of 0.008. If we divide the stress by the strain, we'll get the Young's modulus, which actually turns out to be 387.25 trillion pascals, 387,250 gigapascals, or 387.25 terapascals. This means that to deform just 1%, a stress of 3.8725 terapascals is needed. Since we know that the amount of stress on the bowstring falls within the elastic deformation section, we know that the data will be proportional to the Young's modulus. Using this information, we know that with a stress of 37.7420 kilopascals, the stress on the bowstring during a shot will be 0.0000, you get the idea. It's really, 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 really small. Given this information, I think it's pretty safe to say that your bowstring is an incredibly strong part of your bow, and it's not going to be breaking anytime soon. However, we can also conclude that during the entirety of your shot, your bowstring is going to stretch 0.00000000975%, which is basically nothing. If you want to learn more about how bowstring elasticity will impact your shot, be sure to tune into the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you learned something new about your bowstrings. I know that I did while making this video. This video would not have been possible without the help of Professor Dennis K. Lieu of UC Berkeley, who was instrumental in a lot of the complicated mechanics and physics in this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like down below. And remember, this is only episode 2 of the Science of a Shot series. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when the next episode comes out. I'll see you in the next one.